Shalom. This is Rob Vanoff with TelosTorah. Our Torah portion today is Va'era. That's Exodus 6 through 9, basically. And I want to just zero in on one verse here from Exodus 9. It's Exodus 9, verse 16. And it's in the middle of God's message to Pharaoh through Moses about what is God doing in all these plagues. And it says in the King James here, which I like, in very deed, that's this ve'ulam. For this cause I have raised thee up, to show in thee my power, and that my name may be declared throughout all the earth. And that's a good translation from the Hebrew. Ve'ulam ba'avul zot, for this purpose. He'emadticha. So he'emadti is I caused to stand. I have caused, and then the ka is thee. I have stood you up. You know, in English, to stand somebody up has a different meaning. Like you set a date and then you don't show up, they call it, you stood me up. But this is, I have stood you up. I have raised you up. Ba'avor har'otcha et kochi, to show you my power, my koach. Ulema'an saper shemi b'kol haaretz, and in order to declare my name in all the earth. Isn't that beautiful? Well, why did I want to look at this one? Because Paul cites this in Romans 9, 16 through 18. And I've got the ESV on the left and the NASB on the right. I think I'll read a little bit of the NASB. So then it does not depend on the person who wants it, nor the one who runs, but on God who has mercy. The ESV says it depends not on human will or exertion, but on God who has mercy. For the scripture says to Pharaoh, and then here's the citation, for this very purpose I have raised you up, that I might show my power in you, that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth. So then he has mercy on whomever he wills, and he hardens whomever he wills. It's talking about God's sovereignty. What's wonderful here is that if you looked at the Septuagint translation of this passage, it says, well, let's pull it up here. I wonder, can I pull up? I think I have an English translation here of the Septuagint. It's going to be in a different color. But this is a good English translation of the Septuagint. For this reason, you have been spared. So it flips it to a passive. God's telling Pharaoh, for this purpose you have been spared. But the Hebrew doesn't say that. The Hebrew has an active, he'emadticha, I have raised you up. Guess what? Paul does not cite the Septuagint here. He cites either his own translation of the Hebrew, or he cites a different Greek translation than what comes down to us in the Septuagint tradition. Either way, what Paul cites here in Romans 9:17 tracks precisely with what we find in the Hebrew Masoretic text and not what we find in the Greek Septuagint. I have raised you up, where the Greek Septuagint tradition is, you have been spared. It flips it into a passive voice where Pharaoh is the subject. But in the Masoretic text and in Paul's citation of it here in Romans, God is the subject. He is the one doing it, and Pharaoh is the object. And that's crucial here because it is a verse that Paul cites to support his claim that God's sovereignty is what matters in the situation of salvation. It's about God who has mercy. And actually, I didn't cite it here, but if you go back just a little bit, he also cites, for he says to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I have mercy. I will have compassion on whom I have compassion. That's also from Exodus, but that's later. That's after the golden calf incident that Moses hears these words from the Lord. But in any case, here twice in this cluster in Romans 9, we see Paul citing the book of Exodus talking about God's sovereignty and that he will have mercy upon whom he will have mercy. And that when he tells Pharaoh, I have raised you up for this purpose, that my name would be declared in all the earth, that means that he's doing it through Pharaoh. Whether Pharaoh likes it or not isn't of concern to the Lord. So just a little snippet here from our Torah portion that touches on an important theological point that Paul's making, but also a textual detail where Paul's citation from Exodus tracks tightly with the Hebrew, the Masoretic tradition, and not the Greek Septuagint tradition. There's a common saying that people say, oh, the Gospels and the New Testament cites the Septuagint, Greek, all the time. And that's not the case. And this is just one example to show that that is not the case. All right, just a short little note today on Exodus 9.